can be free. I take the weight on my shoulders. I feel the sky come down on me, and I can't hold it much longer. Gotta let go so I can be free. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
FB Live special day. We found out yesterday Phil Cousins watches the show and he's targeting Max Scherzer. Boom, there it is. Pierzynski's in Dallas. He's going to tee off in like 15, 20 minutes when he's going to be here for Scott Boras, super agent, and Max Scherzer's agent, joining us to talk about the sticky situation. Matt Barnes later, who's very opinionated, Marlins reliever. Corbin Burns, Brewers starter, also on this, and life for him and making sure he's okay as the pec issue. Dan Otero, who's going to represent the league side of what's going on in this Scherzer situation, and Ken Rosenthal. Oh, and the Oakland A's are moving. So, and Madison Bumgarner was DFA'd. Yeah, deep breaths, Kratzy. I see it.
Woo!
You got a lot to do today.
I keep losing all my bets too, so fortunately that's getting overshadowed, like Bumgarner getting DFA'd. So
that's how you hide the news, AJ. If you're not doing well with something, right? Like, hey,
Yes.
the Diamondbacks were like, yo, there's so much news going on, and Manfred was calling out player contracts. The Diamondbacks are like, let's just DFA Bumgarner today and sneak that under there.
He's not doing that bad, is he? I know he had a rough start against St. Louis the other day. I mean, he's yelling at Contreras.
It's probably because he yelled at Contreras.
You think? That's what was the final straw?
That was the final straw. Torrey, I'm going to call him after this show. I'm going to get to the bottom of it.
yeah, ask him.
Yeah.
No comment. Manager asked the question.
Lamelo's your boy, right, Brock?
Torrey?
Yeah.
Oh, one of my favorites. Besides Butterfield, I got Butterfield right behind me. He's number one.
Ooh.
He's 1A. Torrey's 1B. Torrey was unbelievable.
Hey,
Yeah, but
Brock.
Butter never became a manager, so he can still be cool.
That's
Torrey
true.
can't be cool. He's got to have manager talk now.
Yeah, but I still feel like I don't feel like Torrey can go backwards. I think he's even as manager Torrey, he's a guy you want in your corner. So, like I said, he's one of my favorites all time that I've been around.
Brock, before we jump into the Scherzer stuff and talk about it ourselves, before we bring in Scott Boras, what do you got around your neck?
He did it.
He did it.
He never has to run. He never has to run again. I would consider. There I am. Look at it. I would consider myself a marathon finisher, not a marathon runner, because it took me almost 6 hours. But I got an official time. I think anything under 6, you get an official time. So that was such a cool experience. And like I said, not one that I'll ever do again, but just to see how many people come out for that. They legitimately root for you from start to finish. They push you to the end. See, that's why my time was so slow. I made a lot of pit stops. I saw the kids, a lot of friends in Boston. So there were a lot of pit stops, a lot of rests. We had a blast doing it. Weather was shitty. There's a sign. My wife saw that. I didn't even see that one. My wife saw that sign and made me turn around and come take a picture with it. So we enjoyed the day. We were sore the next day, and I guess 2 days out now, I'm feeling almost back to normal, except this thing's heavy around the neck.
Wait. Who finished first? You or your wife?
I finished first. I got her by about 5 minutes. But if you look at our rankings, they are about as last place as you can get without getting last place. So
she didn't make you stop and wait for her? Because
I did.
wife would have made me stop.
I did. No. I ran with her for probably the first half. And then I would kind of go up a little ways, and then we'd meet up with someone who was there watching, and then I'd sit there and wait for her, and she'd catch up, and then I'd go ahead. So she gave up on all the hills about halfway, so she would walk up the hills, and I'd shuffle up the hills, I guess. So I'd get a little bit on her, but then I'd wait for her. But then I wanted to cross the finish line before her, so I could get a video of her coming across. So, like I said, something cool that we shared together, and it was awesome. The day was awesome. Glad we did it, but I'm also glad it's over.
Well, congratulations, bud. And then you just jumped right into the fire today, and we're like 3 minutes away from Scott Boras joining us. AJ, since you're only with us for a portion, then you tee off in the all-celebrity World Classic. What are your thoughts on what went down yesterday? We had Scherzer on just the other day.
First of all, it's the Invited Celebrity Classic, so get it right, not the All World Celebrity Classic. I'm in shock. I did a radio show in Chicago this morning, and of course, the first question was Max Scherzer, and I'm in shock. I said this, and I've tweeted this, and whatever. Max Scherzer is not a stupid person. He would have to be, excuse my language, the fucking stupidest guy in the history of the fucking world to go on our show on Monday, have this exact conversation, and then turn around 2 days later, come back and have spider tack on his fingers. He would have to be a complete idiot. And Max Scherzer is far from an idiot. So it's either that or, listen, there's been 3 guys ever been kicked out. They've all been by the guy you see in the middle of your screen, Phil Cuzzi. And I'm not saying Phil Cuzzi's a bad guy. I'm not saying Phil Cuzzi's out looking for dudes. But the facts are the facts. And he has thrown out all 3 of these guys. So I don't know what happened. If you listen to Max's explanation after the game, he doesn't sound like a guilty person to me. You don't stand there and swear on your kids' lives and go off like that and go on the offensive. If you're guilty, I'm sorry, that's just not what you do as a person or as a player. So I feel like something happened. And there's an MLB person watching Max rinse his hand. He said he rinsed my hand. I used alcohol. I put rosin right back on. Where's this MLB person? Why are they not in front of the cameras? Where's Phil Cuzzi? I want to hear from Phil Cuzzi. I don't need to hear from a pool reporter saying, yeah, he said this or that. Screw that. Phil Cuzzi, stand up, say why you threw him out, and let's get to the bottom of it.
Maybe we'll get him on the show. Doubtful. But we are going to have a league official later. Let's get the perspective from super agent Scott Boras joining us right now, representing Max. Released a statement yesterday, and we were like, we need to get into this a lot more. Scott, great to see you. You got Brzezinski and Holt and Kratz here, and we're excited to dive into this because it's a real problem, and it's why we spoke to Max about it the other day. How you doing today, and what are your thoughts, especially the day later now from what everything's going down with the league?
First of all, this group's looking in a lot better shape than me. I don't know.
You look good, Scott.
You know, no. The essence of this is that when you set up systems and rules and do things that create standards instead of rules. What do I mean by that? Is that if you're driving on the freeway and the rule is drive safely, that means that how you're driving is subject to subjective interpretation by the governing body. If the rule is drive 55, then you have standards and you have notice to the driver about your exact conduct that you're to carry out. Max yesterday gets a warning, pursuant to the rules of, there's this rule in Major League Baseball, it's called 602C, which says that the umpires are to warn them and that you basically give the player an opportunity. And ironically, MLB officials are in the tunnel of the dugout area. They observed Max cleaning his hands with alcohol and astringent designed to take any substance off. Then he applies rosin and sweat for the rosin to adhere, and then he goes out. Now, the testimony of the umpires, what I call the koozie spectrometer, is that you have men that are suggesting that after this conduct being witnessed by an MLB official, they're suggesting that the tackiness that they observed originally in the prior inning had now, by touch, increased or advanced beyond what the tackiness was from the prior inning. So the assumption is now that the standard is no tacky, tacky, and tacky, tacky. And we have now heard that tacky, tacky is not, by their touch, is not something that is now acceptable. My point to you is, what and how does the manager, coaches, players, and frankly, this burden should not be on umpires. Because how do you know? What is the variable? What's the standard? And then we take a historic major league player who is obviously gifted, throwing 95, 96, everything who Max Scherzer is, brilliant, has been given a warning, cleans his hands in front of an MLB official, and then the observation, the subjective observation, is that it's stickier than it was before, or quote, after they spoke, I'm sure, to the commissioner's office, the umpires then report after the game, it's the stickiest I've ever seen. So everything, every aspect of this testimony is subjective. Every aspect of this is illogical, because obviously when you warn a player and he goes out and cleanses his hands, that the suggestion that it's stickier, well, what's it sticky with? It's sticky with an approved substance. But the answer is, when the approved substance is not approved, is in the subjective intent and observation of the touch test by a couple umpires. And when you do this in a system, you have basically damaged the game. You prevented fans from seeing a great player. You prevented his team and ownership from depriving the skills of that player. And basically, you provided a system that is in effect. There is no way that a player can judge or have notice of how he is to apply rosin, which is by rule an accepted substance offered to the players by the league.
Well, Scott, first, thank you for coming on with us. This is an important subject for me and for many people out there that love baseball. What's next for Major League Baseball? What's next for Max? I know there's an automatic 10-game suspension. There's an appeal process, correct? And why have we not heard from the MLB official that watched him wash his hands, put rosin on his hands, and then go right to the mound? Where's that person? And why have we not heard from Phil Cuzzi? Why doesn't he have to answer questions?
Well, I assume he's somewhere in Milwaukee. His name is Brian Anderson, so we have a couple of them there. I don't know, but I think the aspect of this is one where the logic of this, as you pointed out earlier, AJ, is that a player would not go out, cleanse his hands, and we know that he did it because an MLB official observed it. He would not go out and make his hands stickier or tackier, as they say. But that's their allegation, that after cleansing his hands and putting the rosin on and applying the sweat to make it moist and adhere, he went out, and by their judgment, it was tackier than before. And my point about all this, if they want a level of tackiness that is acceptable or not acceptable, the players, trainers, the coaches, everyone around needs to know what that standard is. But the standard they're applying is so subjective that there is no way to have notice. So it's left clearly in the hands of the only umpire in baseball that finds this standard to be objectable to him.
Who is to blame ultimately in this whole thing? Who is? I mean, you can cut it up into portions. You can give it all 100% blame to one person. Who is to blame here, and how can we fix that?
You have to have rules. You have to have specificity. First of all, we do not want players, umpires. We do not want the rules of our game adjudicated in open public in front of 50,000 fans. We want it done privately. So there should be they have an Apple genius at the stores. We need an MLB genius at every game. And we need him there to do what? To adjudicate these things privately and say, your hands are acceptable. You can go out. We're going to look at your hands. We're going to do this independent of the umpires. We're going to do this privately. When you go out, if you want to check them, it's done in the tunnel of the dugout. There's a procedure before the pitcher goes out, and they do that. And if they want to check them afterwards, they do so in that tunnel. And you can have a spectrometer. You can have all kinds of testing devices there that determine what substances are on a player's hand. And we can have all kind of scientific methodologies to determine what that substance is and what would look, in a spectrometer. So these things can all be set up and done, but we don't want to do it in front of fans, and we certainly don't want to damage the image of players, and we don't want to in any way affect the momentum of the game. And we also don't want to put umpires in this position, because it's obviously something that is so difficult for them to apply that, frankly, only one umpire has ever applied that judgment.
Yeah, Scott. Well, the lawyer's really coming out in you right now, and as a jury, I find Max not guilty of the sticky substance. I'm Team Max. Obviously, played with him. Know how he is as a competitor. Do you think the Domingo Germán incident had anything to do with this? As far as like when they had the conversation, he went back into the dugout, he came back out. They let him pitch. Kind of a big deal around that. Max, kind of the same situation, but I'm with you. I mean, it's so subjective. Like, there's got to be a better way than to just touch somebody's hands to see if, like you said, if it's not tacky, or in your words, tacky.
Yeah, I think we all, the frustration that a player feels, obviously, is, what am I doing? You saw me apply. The only substance on my hands is approved. Now you're saying I'm applying it at a level that is unapproved. How would I know that level? And the answer to this is that in our rules and in what we do, we have to have specificity if we're going to engage in a rule. We cannot have subjectivity. We cannot have the feel test. And the other thing, you say Max has an appeal. Well, let me tell you about that appeal. That is a commissioner's office official who will adjudicate and rule on that field. And they'll take the umpire's reports and they'll say, sorry, tacky is not tacky. So tacky violates the rule. So you get suspended because you're tacky instead of tacky. And we have no idea what the difference between tacky and tacky is.
Do you feel like the tacky and the tacky was an attack on Max? Do you feel like because he is not afraid to say things, because of what he represents as an incredible player's player, that do you feel like it was, this might be a 50-50 thing? We're going to attack Max on this.
You never want to imply or discuss things. It's kind of like the classic thing: did the pitcher throw at the hitter? Well, only when AJ was catching. But the
hey.
But the thing of it is, my point is, AJ, umpires could think, well, AJ's catching, so you know what, he's going to throw at the hitters. But the reality, I don't ever want to imply intent. I don't want to do that. I don't want to infer something I don't have knowledge of. I just really want to make the point that if MLB goes to the level of having officials in the private areas of the dugout, and they observe players cleansing their hands, and that is kind of that is the clarity that Max brought to this process. There's nothing on my hands here. I'm cleaning it with an astringent to remove anything you suggest is on there. Now you're going to watch me put the rosin and the sweat on and go out. The result of that is that, I'm Catholic, so I've gone to confession. I've been there. And the result of it is that he goes out to the mound and they say that he is in a worse state. And then the allegations that come from that go, well, I don't know what's on his hands because it appeared to me to be something that's more than rosin. Really? Well, where does that testimony come from, and what's the basis for it? And the reality of it is that we're dealing with a witness from a neutral witness that watched him cleanse his hands and only apply the substances that are given to him by the league. So then my suggestion is, did the league give him a rosin bag that has something different than rosin? I mean, we all can apply a vast level of conduct that has potentials that are not demonstrated by evidence. But the fact is, the evidence is he cleaned his hands, he went out, and after doing so and applying the product that they know was the product given to the player by the league, that product produced, in the umpire's interpretation, a substance that was tacky versus tacky.
Well, we got a new nickname for Max. He's the chemist now because he can make alcohol and rosin like Spider Tech. So he's got a job after he's done.
I guess so.
So, and by the way, Scott, only your clients threw at me, like Derek Lowe, Matt McClendon, who works for you. Those guys, they were the ones that they threw at me. I didn't tell them to throw at anybody else. Okay. What's
I'm not going to deny that.
What's next? What's next? I know he has an appeal. Did you call, as soon as you saw this, did you call Manfred? Do you call Raul Ibanez? Do you call somebody in the league office and say, this is bullshit? What do we do? And then now what? What's the appeal process? I don't know.
In these processes, the MLBPA are the sanctioned body that provides the representation of Max in a hearing over rule violation and such, and certainly the attorneys there do a great job of supporting the players and representing them. And obviously, we contact them and give them our opinions of what's occurred, make sure that Max's testimony is chronicled and such. But remember, this is not a neutral judge. This is somebody that's going to, the umpires are employed by the league. The person adjudicating this case is employed by the league. And so normally in these dynamics is that it is not someone who is going to look at the rules and say the rules are so subjective that it's not, this is not an expert when they touch a hand and say from one inning to the next that it's tacky or tackier, or it's the most tacky I've ever felt. Those dynamics and standards are not chronicled. It's not 0.3 centimeters. It's not, there's no definition to any of this. It's just really a subjective manifestation of what that day that umpire chooses to adhere to. And the only interesting about this is that the other umpires have stayed away from these subjective dynamics unless they have a noticeable substance. When you go back and look at Herman's case, now the umpire said to him, excuse me, you can't apply the rosin until you get out to the mound.
Well, and it sounds like
now there is no rule that says when or if you can apply the rosin, because now we have a time constraint where you're running out to the mound and you're going out and you got to put the correct amount of rosin on, get that done, and then you have to do your warm-up pitches, and you have to do that within a time frame. So we have all those things that are interfacing with the rule, in addition to what now we have an interpretive application that's not written. So again, the players have no notice of when and how to apply the rosin.
Well, it sounds to me like you're screwed. So good luck against the league. Maybe instead of the MLBPA, they could hire you to go in there and give Max his case.
Believe me, the arguments I'm making are things that the MLBP lawyers are fully aware of, and they have great experience in going through these things. The only problem that we have is that, these types of hearings are solely in the hands of the commissioner's office, and it makes the foundations of the rules, why the rules are where they are, what's the reason for this, and obviously we need a greater interpretation of this. We need to have a rule, not a standard. We need to remove the subjectivity from the umpires. And I don't blame the umpires, because the umpires are sitting there doing something that all of a sudden the focus is on them. They're doing this field test. And I think the reason that many, many umpires have stayed away from this is because when you hear the basis for the decision making, which is one inning it's tacky and the next inning it's tacky, but knowing that he cleaned his hands, which would logically remove the subject of tackiness, and yet he reapplies it, in front of the people that what he's using is league sanctioned. I don't know. And what I'm most upset about is that who they're doing this to. This is Max Scherzer. This is a man who's the world champion. He's a 3-time Cy Young Award winner. He is a person that does what you should do as a Major League Baseball player. He is that kind of person. The amount of information that he shares with my young clients and what he does to teach how to be a major leaguer and how to live his life on and off the field, that is what is most disturbing to me.
Hey, Scott, so for Max, this is also a personal attack of his character. This is likely going to cost him money. And he spoke very heated right after the game yesterday. He also, of course, spoke to us a few days ago and called out this very issue and said this is going to be a problem. But then you have Phil Cuzzi afterward, like you mentioned earlier, saying this is the stickiest he's felt anyone's hands in 3 seasons, to be the judge of how sticky someone's hands are. So, I mean, technically it's slander. How does Max feel about that afterward? Because Max spoke to the media before Phil Cuzzi addressed the one pool reporter. So how did Max react to somebody calling out his character, costing him money, and basically saying he's a cheater?
Well, umpires' opinions are protected, Scott. So we are, when you talk about slander and things of that nature, is that their opinions about what they see or don't see on the field is something that is in the nature of their opinion, and they're allowed to give that. But remember that these umpires, immediately when they're in the room, you're going to find out that they received phone calls, they received statements, they received advice on exactly what to say to the media and when. And obviously, when you have a subjective rule, you want to provide evidence in your report that lends to objective evidence that is going to make sure that under their existing rules, they have the needed testimony to provide evidence to support the claims that will be coming, knowing that the player is saying it's rosin, and then they're going to use the rule to say, no, you used too much rosin because we told you, we warned you and told you it was too sticky. And then the fact that's interesting, though, is that Max cleansed his hands in front of an MLB official, which was probably unknown to them. And in doing so, reapplied the rosin in front of them and then went out. And so that makes their testimony, how do I put it, interesting.
When's the testimony? When does this get to be solved? Because maybe this is a chance for, your party and the MLBPA and everyone to present a case and say, actually, this isn't an automatic suspension. This needs to be fixed.
Well, that would be up to the MLBPA and their lawyers that are, representing Max in the hearing, and MLB. We have not heard anything from MLB yet. So
that means it's not happening quick. It's not going to be quick.
Well, I think
process no.
Well, no, because Scott, because it's an automatic 10 games. Does that 10 games start today for the Mets' next game, or did it wait till the appeal? Do you see? Because if it's automatic 10 games, which I think is wrong, then would Max be suspended for the next 10 games, or is there until the appeal?
Well, obviously, Max will file an appeal to this. And again, when we get down to the rules that are applicable, you understand the issue here. The issue is this is completely a subjective judgment. And to suggest that this is not an independent arbitrator, it's a employee of the commissioner's office that will adjudicate this. And they will look at the rule and say that these umpires have every right to make subjective judgments and say, and the fact that the player doesn't have notice. Did the umpires come out and say to Max, hey, we warned you? And Max goes, look, I put this in front of your officials. I clean my hands. I test them there. And they could have said, no, it's still too tacky. Go wash off again. They didn't do that. Because they're going to say that they warned him before. Because now, if it's a subjective standard, then, and you want the player to play and you want the rules observed, you're going to have to say, no, I understand you're just putting the rosin and the sweat on. I get that. I'm not worried about what you're doing. I'm just telling you for our purposes, it's too tacky. So go back in and wash it off again and make it less tacky. They didn't do that. They threw him out. And the reason is that they're going to say they warned him the first time. And so the point of this is that whether or not the umpires knew the process that was going on in the dugout, I don't know. But to suggest that a man cleans his hands with alcohol in front of an MLB official and applies only rosin in front of it, to suggest that their testimony is after doing that it is more tacky than it was the prior inning. I suggest to you that any player who uses rosin, any player who applies it, is now subject to having absolute no notice that he can be suspended from Major League Baseball. Because how do you know? You don't know. And it's clearly in the purview of the umpire to make that judgment. And you're walking out there with the uncertainty that if you do use any form of rosin, that they would have this potential to suspend you.
Yeah, and Max called it out the other day. It was like, first off, these checks need to happen behind the scenes. It's weird. It's gotten so weird and awkward. It's like there's hand touching from umps. We're discussing and debating how much someone's washing their hands. It feels like kindergarten. It's very strange. So, Scott, we only have a few minutes left with you. There was two other things I wanted to ask you about. One was the commissioner came out on Tuesday and said a reform that has been of interest to ownership for a number of years is a limitation of contract length, and then went on and on about how they need to pass the money on to yesterday's stars. I'm paraphrasing a little bit at that point, but the quotes are too long. And then, of course, MLBPA Executive Director Tony Clark responded that it was basically an assault on guaranteed contracts. I have a feeling I know where you stand on this, but what were your reactions when you heard about that?
Well, the saber rattling about free agent rights, arbitration rights is always going to be a constant from the commissioner's office. And look, when you've got a luxury tax restraint that we have in Major League Baseball, you don't have to worry about the length of contracts. And the reason you don't have to worry about them is because that element is something that creates the greatest burden and restraint on the relationship between revenues earned from Major League Baseball and what percentage of revenues the players receive. And contract length, I don't think the commissioner is at all concerned with, because the reality of it is he knows that the clarity and point of light in this process is that, do I have the buzzer? Do I have the thing that restrains the true value of players? And in the current contract form, they have that with the luxury tax penalties, rules, and I think Tony is exactly right that what is going on in Major League Baseball right now is a great success, increased franchise values, revenues that are truthfully in the $14 billion area. The game is an amazing success with gaming, with streaming, with all the things ahead. To suggest that there's alterations required that would limit the potentials of players, star players, to receive revenues, I find that merely to be that there is always a need and a want to look to other leagues and say, why don't we have that? And I think the difference, we're going to always hear that with Major League Baseball versus other leagues. And I think the point of light is that the game is very, very successful under the current rights structure of having free agency and having arbitration for players. And the amount of control that the owners have over that, I think, is something where they get to reserve the best players in the game for 6 years. 6 years they get to hold on to those great players. And for 3 of those years, pay them the minimum salary. What a great system for having the stars of our game under control.
Scott, since we're talking contracts, there might be a new player for you to call and investigate or call and negotiate with, and that would be Las Vegas Athletics. I don't think you've sent a lot of your big names to Oakland lately, but when they move to Vegas, and it looks like it's going to happen, Are you going to be on the phone with Billy Beane and the Oakland Athletics saying, hey, look, I've got Manny Machado. He's got an opt-out here in 27. What do you think, 300 million more, 500 million?
Well, AJ, I'm always on the phone with Billy Beane. I told him, I said, we may not do much, but I brought Mount Fuji to you. So there you go.
Okay. So what do you think about them moving? It's about time, right? They can't sustain.
You know, from a TV rights standpoint, the Bay Area is one of our most prominent rights markets, and you're talking 12, 13 million people. To suggest that a team's going to leave a market that is like Chicago and New York to go to Vegas, which I think is certainly a valued potential for a major league franchise. But I just think there's a lot of things that can be done in the Bay Area by Major League Baseball to make that a very, very viable market and make it a very viable television market, as we've done with, the New York and Chicago markets. So, but sometimes relationships with the city fathers and things like that reach a point where the leverage you're going to use is an exterior city.
So you're for expansion over relocation?
Well, I believe that, expansion is something that I do believe we have franchises that do need to be relocated. The Bay Area is not one of those areas that I would think that is not viable to raise a very successful major league team if it's done correctly. And again, in fairness to ownership, with the relationship with cities and MLBs approving them to move to San Jose versus Oakland, all those things are inherent in the decision of utilizing the Bay Area. But I do believe that we have a couple great expansion cities, and I do believe we have a couple franchises that would really benefit from moving to markets where their business and valuations would substantially increase.
Scott, thank you so much for joining us. Important to have you on today, of course, given all of the news, especially to get to the Max stuff. And, we look forward to having you when these kind of topics pop up. Always welcome. So good luck, fight the good fight, and hopefully we see Max on the field without all the BS suspension stuff, because the league can't even figure out the rules.
Great. I'm going to go try to hit the gym, guys. I got to catch up before the next time I come on. All right.
Appreciate you, Scott. Thank you so
Scott.
much.
Thanks,
Scott Boras getting us really, really good insight on what's going on. And we have Matt Barnes from the Marlins joining us in a few minutes. But AJ, I know you have to jump to go tee off with the top celebrities in the country. So your thoughts?
Oh, yeah. Well,
your thoughts there?
No, I'm just happy I got to be a part of that because I wanted to hear his side of it. I mean, I'm on Max's side, like Brock said. I think it's BS what happened. And I'm glad we got to hear about the process. I don't know the process. I played for almost 2 decades, and I had an appeal, and you call the phone, and it's Joe Torre on the other end. And you say, well, I did this, and yeah, I threw my helmet at Bob Davidson because he sucked that night. Well, okay, you get suspended 1 game. Okay, that's it. Fine, move on. But with this one, this is different because this is, like we talked about, this is a man's career, his personal stuff. Like, they took personal shots when you say Max Scherzer is a cheater, which I don't think he is at all. So I wanted to hear what his side of it was, and it was enlightening, not only about Max, but about the Oakland stuff and the Manfred contract stuff, because I'm pro player, obviously. So it was awesome to hear, and I can't thank Scott Boras enough for coming on.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, a lot of good insight there. And, of course, a lot of Scott one-liners, too, like the fuzzy barometer. Tacky.
Yeah. Not tacky.
There's a barometer, right? It's tacky. Oh, he hit the tacky in my mind. And also, like, you could have more sensitive hands. So maybe it feels stickier to him than it does to others. So we'll get into it. We got a lot more to get to with other guests, too. AJ, good luck.
Thanks, boys.
Go get him, AJ.
And, get your gear on foulterritoryshow.com.
Yes. Good call. Thank you.
Nice plug there.
Plug. That's good. All about it. Look, if you want to look like Kratzy and not like me, where everyone says my shirt's too tight today, I'll take it. Anyway, let's bring on Marlins reliever Matt Barnes joining us right now. Matt, great to talk to you. always looks like you got a sunny day behind you. How you doing today?
I'm good. We're traveling to Cleveland today, so just been running around like crazy this morning, laundry, cleaning, packing up the whole nine.
Nice. Okay, so I first want to get to the topical stuff. We just had Boras on, and we were just going over what happened with Max. We had Max on the other day, on Monday, okay? And then he gets into all of this on Wednesday. We asked him about the Domingo Germán situation from the weekend, and Max was basically like a psychic. He's like, this is going to be a disaster. It's like they don't know how to judge what is on everyone's hands. Rosin can be sticky. They're checking it in front of everyone. He was kind of surprised that it hasn't been more of a problem. And of course, Max is the one who gets dinged. So you've been in the league for a while. What do you think about all this?
I think it's crazy. It's so hard to determine what's what, and like discretion is such a tricky thing to play with. But Max is completely right. Like, you can take sweat in the rosin that we have now, and you can make it very tacky. And those are completely legal things that the league has now provided us as an alternative to what was going on prior to that. So I think I don't know, it's a super tricky situation. But anytime you run into like I said, anytime you run into the discretion portion of it, like, there's going to be some stuff that gets messed up. And for a guy who's been around and accomplished, as much as Max, like that's, I don't know, it's not his legacy, but like, it looks bad for a guy who probably wasn't doing anything except what he was allowed to do. So I don't know. It's tough. They need to figure out a way to provide something that's acceptable and used by everybody, right? Or like figure out a way to decipher it. Because I can tell you, like, the difference between a sunscreen and rosin, a spider tack and a pelican grip, and rosin and sweat is very, very different.
Yeah, well, Barnesy, I fully expected you to be at the pool whenever we called lounging. Now that you're in Miami, you're down in the heat. You're out of the Boston cold. Yeah, we just talked to Scott, man. Everything's so subjective, right? It's does the umpire think it's stickier than it's supposed to be? And right. I believe Max is telling the truth. 100%. Obviously, they said he washed his hands. I think most teams now they're gonna be calling, see what did Max use to wash his hands, because that's the sticky stuff, right? That's what we need to increase the spin rate. But
it gets very sticky.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously, I've played with you. You rosin, sunscreen, whatever. But are you still using it? Does that get in your head as far as like, is this too sticky? Am I going to get caught for this, or what goes through your mind whenever you're taking them out?
No, I grab the rosin that they have out there, right? We have all the Major League Baseball issued rosins. They're on the back of the mound. They're in the bullpen. I grabbed it, get a little moisture on the hands, and kind of rub it around like this, right? And that's completely acceptable. From everything that we've been told by the league, you can have sweat and use sweat and rosin, and that creates tackiness. Now, depending on how much rosin you use and how much sweat you have, I guess could determine like the level of tacky, but still completely legal. So like, to me, that it's a really hard issue. Like, how does a guy get in trouble for that? So I'm going to continue to do the same thing. And if somebody wants to bang me for using sweat and rosin, then I'm probably going to have the same reaction as Max, and we're going to be back on here talking about it.
Have you ever been close? Because they were saying like there's like a process, and you saw with Mingo and everything, Germán from the Yankees, how it was like, oh, there's a process. Have you ever been close where they're like, what's the deal with that?
No, never. Even when the first rule came out, I went to the point so far as to like into the training room with tape remover and scraping gloves and shit. And after that, I got new gloves now and I nothing, right? But no, and I think part of the problem is like, or not problem, but like with relievers, like I'm not going to be out there for more than one, maybe 2 innings, right? Like an up down. So you're only going to get checked the one time, and you grab the rosin in the bullpen, you go in and throw, and then it's kind of done. It's tricky because like Miami is super humid, but we're going to Cleveland and it's going to be 45. So like the amount of sweat you have in rosin is going to vary depending on the weather that you're in, just in general, right? Like the more humid it is, the tackier it's going to be.
Also, Matt, I don't understand. Do they have some device that's going to measure if there's too much rosin and sweat? And also, if you're someone who sweats a lot, now do you have to worry about being a big leaguer because you might have a disadvantage and get booted from the game?
100%. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to that, but it's a discretion, right? I mean, and discretion is a very tricky thing and a very fine line to walk. So, man, I don't know. The best way would just truthfully just have one universal substance that like somebody sees you apply, right? Because like, how are you gonna say somebody has too much rosin on? Like, how do you?
That's my problem, Matt. We already have that. We have a universal substance. It's called rosin, and then they told Max he had too much of it. Essentially,
how do you have too much rosin on? Like, am I only allowed to grab it and go like 1, 2, and then I have to put it down? Otherwise, the third one's gonna cause too much. I don't know. Can I only go like this on sweat? Or like if I go like this, is that too much? I don't know. I mean,
somebody needs to create something to where we can tell, all right, that's tacky, but it's tacky rosin, and it's not tacky spider tack, right? Like I just flew back from Boston, and I had to get checked, spread eagle, right? They had a wand. They waved me down because our stroller had some type of dust or particles that flagged them. So they had to check me, and they checked me. Okay, you're good to go. Boom. Right. Board the plane. There's got the feel in the hands. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me how you, and it sucks for the umpires because they're put in a tough spot. Like they said, this is the stickiest it's been we've ever felt in 3 years. Well, they only feel the hands of the guys who are throwing the games that they're umpiring. There's got to be a better way to do it, to figure out what's going on and who's using what. It can't just be like, yep, that's sticky, boom, too sticky, you're done.
Yeah, and I don't know what that is. I know that they messed around with trying to create balls that just had natural tack on it, but like even then, you're running into the same rosin issue. Like, I don't know. The whole too much rosin to me that's insane. It's insane.
I'm with you. It's weird, and hey, Max called it out too. That was what was so ironic. Like we were just getting into all of this, and then it happened to him. So, yeah, interesting, and wanted to get your take on it because you've been in the league for a while, and it just doesn't seem like it's been solved. So, all right, let me get a Marlins question in there. Guys are playing pretty good baseball for Miami. Pitching's been there for years. Hitting has not always been there consistently. Kratzy, especially. I'm a big Luis Ariz guy. What's it been like to have this dude? And I got to check. I mean, he was hitting 500 as of like Monday. I think he might have lost a few points, but how entertaining is it to watch his at-bats?
It's incredible. I mean, the guy gets the bat to the ball all the time. And like, even on a day when he goes 1 for 4, he's probably barreled the ball twice. It's just at somebody. And I tell him all the time, I'm like, thank God you're on my team. Because when I had to face you in Minnesota, you were an absolute pain to get out. It's a nightmare. The guy covers everything. And I think I heard somebody say it the other day, but like, he reminds me of like a modern day Tony Gwynn. It's incredible. It's impressive. The guy's, his work ethic and having him in the middle of the order and doing what he's doing. I think he's hitting like 450, which is insane. Cycled the other night. So, absolute hell of a ball player.
You're talking about one of your teammates. Now that you're settling into the Miami, besides the fact that Jacob Stallings looks like me, and he's like super ugly. He's my little brother. But anyway, I need to ask you, because I asked Vaughn Grissom the other day, of your new teammates, you need to cut one, like cut them out of the game, like no more. Trade one, and then you got a room with one. What of your three different guys? So it's cut, trade, and then you got a room with one.
Man, you put me on the spot here, huh?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear these
Live
answers.
TV.
Can I cut myself?
You're out of the game forever, but you get to keep the money you're making? Maybe.
Can I cut myself? Man, I don't know. Trade a guy? I'd probably room with Tanner Scott.
A lefty?
Yeah, man. Him and I, he just kind of became boys in spring training. We had a couple of buddies that have mutually played together. He was in Baltimore. So trade a guy? Man, I don't know.
To give you an idea, it was tougher for Vaughn to. I originally had it as kill and trade and room, and the guy he was easier to get somebody he would kill than to trade. Like trading somebody, it really hurt his like. It's like, man, that's tough.
Like when I'm sitting here thinking about like cutting somebody, like my first thought is like go to a guy who's got like 17 years and has accomplished a ton of stuff, and like they're good, right? Like, still want him on the team, obviously, but like Johnny Cueto's an awesome dude, but he's got like 17 years in the big leagues. So, like, he's done great for himself. So, like, if he didn't play again, you know what I mean?
Yeah, get rid of him. Get rid of him. Just say it, Barnesy.
Trade a guy. We'll stick with that.
Trade yourself to the Tampa Bay Rays. They're 16-3. Pitchers go there and dominate. Trade yourself to the Rays. First place team.
I like Miami. I don't want to go anywhere.
Good answer. Good answer. I was testing.
Extend yourself.
That was a test.
I'm looking out the window of Biscayne Bay, and it's 85 and sunny out.
How you got the curtains down right now? Let's raise those things up, man. I want to see some
this
sun.
Side.
There you go. Now we're talking.
On that side. These are down because like, the apartment building's like 14 feet away.
Yeah.
No privacy.
No, he's got it right, Brock. He's got the setup right. Plus, the lighting's better. He's got the perfect setup.
Yeah.
All right. Trade somebody. Who would I trade? Maybe a starting pitcher because the Marlins have like 15 of them that are nasty. Maybe Cabrera. Trade Cabby, maybe. He's really good. I don't know.
Man, Kratzy, you're crushing people. You're crushing people, man.
Yeah, that's a tough question. That's real tough.
I'm gonna go into the clubhouse and get shit today, probably for this.
Yeah. We'll keep it a secret. It's not like anyone can access it.
And then the next Marlin we have on, they're gonna kill you.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I give them permission to cut me. They can cut me.
As long as you get to stay in Miami.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Hey, Matt, so Ohtani and Judge is going down in the Bronx this week, and they were selling Ohtani jerseys in the Bronx.
Yep.
Would you want your jersey being sold everywhere? And do you think it's cool? Or some fans are like, really, we're going to sell jerseys of the other dude? I mean, I think it's good for the game generally, but, you know, some fans are like, pride, hey, we're only selling our guy.
Like, do you know how good you have to be to have your jersey sold in the Yankees team store? Like, I don't know if it's ever been done. Like, you have to be so good to have that happen. And not only just one, like, they had the Japanese version, too. Like, there was options. It wasn't just a single jersey. My jersey will never be sold in another team store. I don't even know if it's sold in the Marlins team store. So, like hey. If you want that jersey, you got to go online and, like, create it through Fanatics and, like, you got options.
Hey, speaking of names on jerseys, so when I'm trying to find out, like, first of all, I want to find out something about Matt Barnes that nobody knows about because I was going to the deepest crevasse of the internet, and I found now obviously everybody knows, you know, Matt Barnes, the basketball player, and you know, then you're probably second on that list, Matt Barnes, the baseball player. But you know what I found? I want you to choose which of these guys is closest to you. I found a football coach, a Canadian hockey goaltender, a soccer coach, and a British rock band member named Matt Barnes, and he plays for a band named You, Me at 6. Which do you connect most with?
The football coach, for sure.
Yeah?
Yeah, I don't know the rules of hockey. I enjoy watching hockey once in a while. I know that we used to go to some of the Bruins playoff games, and those are a blast. Other than that, not much about hockey. A rock band, not really. I watch football every Sunday for like 11 hours. So, so definitely the football coach.
Hey, so Matt, you watch football. Of course, you catch now Vegas Raider games. What do you think about the Vegas A's coming soon as we got that breaking news? You've played in Oakland quite a bit. I mean, I feel bad for the fans losing a team, but what were your thoughts about
fans?
That? No, there are
Right?
fans, but the
I
A's,
mean,
I
that's
said the other
very
day,
few.
but the
Very
A's are
few.
quiet quitting. They don't market the team. The stadium they take care of possums more than they take care of people. They haven't been trying at all as a front office. They wanted to move.
Yeah, I mean, like most, well, I guess some cities you don't, but like, I just think you need to have, in my mind, there's so many good cities in the country that could host a baseball team, whether it's like Vegas, Charlotte, Nashville, like, and I'm sure there's others that I'm missing, but like, there's so many good cities that I don't, like, they would have to build a new stadium in Oakland anyways, right? In order to like really keep up and compete, because Oakland Stadium is just, it's not that great. So I think I was actually talking to my wife the other day, and I was like, I'm surprised that like a baseball team's not in Vegas, and kind of saw this coming, truthfully, especially with the other Oakland teams leaving. Like Golden State moved, and right, the Raiders left, so it doesn't really surprise me.
All right, Barnesy, with you heading to Cleveland, you said.
Yep.
How many shoes you packing? We know you're sneakerhead. How many you packing? How many you pack for a road trip? And which ones are you packing?
So on the first road trip, I packed six and wore a seventh pair maybe. On this trip, I'm going lighter on this trip. I'm packing 3 and wearing a 4th. And I have 2 pairs of J's, the Jordan 1s, a pair of Yeezys to walk around in, and I'm wearing Louboutins today.
Ooh.
Wow.
There you go.
Down in jeans, so wearing the Louboutin white sneakers with it.
How many pieces of luggage does that take?
That all fits in one suitcase.
Wow.
But I have a sneaker carrier in case I want to bring additional sneakers.
Got it. There we go. That's
Yeah,
what I was
the
looking
first trip I had the sneaker carrier, and then I had the suitcase, and then I had my 2 carry-ons. I'm like, man, this is a lot. I gotta consolidate this. I don't feel like carrying around 4 bags.
Right, you can show off the good sneaks at home, you know.
Yeah, so I cut. And Cleveland's gonna be like 45 and raining, so you don't really want to like bring and wear the nice ones really, because the weather destroys them. You know.
Yeah, and there's no way your wife's going to Cleveland. No chance a wife is going from Miami to Cleveland.
No, she's not. She's just waiting.
Is she in Miami? Because I missed her at the marathon. Lakin ran into her. She was cheering loud. I missed her. I didn't know she was there.
She's in Connecticut right now. She's coming down here when we get back. She's coming to Miami.
Hey, Matt, I've got one more for you. It's a game that I think is going to be way easier than Kratzy's, okay? So, yes, I promise. The Atlantic League is used as the testing ground for new rules. They just announced for the Atlantic League. I'll give you 3 of them that they're trying out. Let me know. I was going to say let me know your favorite, but maybe you could do like, I hate, and then you could kind of be indifferent on one of them if you want. The hook rule, where you have to get your starter through 5, otherwise you lose the DH. You don't like that one?
That was easy.
That was easy.
Cut that one.
Cut that one?
Dumbest thing ever.
I don't know what the other 2 are, but that's dumb.
Okay, ready for number 2?
Just wait.
It gets better. Instead of 2 disengagements, you only get 1 disengagement for pickoffs.
Sick.
Cut.
Grand finale. You might be okay with this one. I don't know.
And second base as is. If the guy walks or gets a single, might as well just tell him to go to second. know what I mean?
Yes. Lastly, to make it even easier for you with base runners, a designated runner. So you can get on first and a guy can come in, and then that player that gets taken out still can stay in the game. Listen to this gimmick. I have to explain it this way because there was all this clarification going back and forth. Then that player can still go back in the game as well. You can't go in more than twice. Designated runner. Like that gimmick?
So they're trying it this year.
Yep.
We can veto for 1 year if they want to do it next year, right?
Yes.
So then they can maybe implement it in potentially my last year. Don't matter. Keep going.
Do whatever you want.
We keep doing this. Like, it's just like, what are we doing? And I'm the first one to admit, like, I thought the pitch clock was a terrible idea at first, and I like it a lot now. Like, so I'm okay admitting that, right? Like, I was wrong in my opinion of the pitch clock. I love the pace of the games. Brock, we were not afraid to play a 3.5-hour Tuesday 8-inning game.
Yeah.
Like, it was unbelievable. So, like, the fact that we're cruising around at 2.5-hour games, I think the pace is so much better. I think people are enjoying it. The engagement, there's more action. Like, I like it. Do I think there's some things that could still make it better? Of course. But, like, if the starter doesn't go 5 innings, you lose your DH. Like, then what? Like, are we going to have relievers hitting in the 12th inning?
Matt Barnes.
So dumb. It's
Like,
so dumb.
Matt Barnes, get a bat.
Or like one disengagement. I don't even have a disengagement with nobody on. Like, how do we start there? How about you give me one disengagement with nobody on, and then we can entertain some other stuff, right? And what was the last one?
Designated runner.
Oh yeah, no. What? Why? Why?
Usain Bolt.
Yeah, Usain Bolt wants to play, and so does the freeze. My thing is, I thought the point you brought up that was interesting is you turned on the pitch clock. I think players were so anti-pitch clock for a while, and that was one where I disagreed. I thought the pitch clock was going to be good. You can debate how many seconds it was going to be, but I did think it was getting out of control as a lifelong fan, and now following the game for 20-something years. I'm in my mid-30s. So I wonder if the league's like, don't listen to them anymore because we implemented the pitch clock and it's good. So let's just try all of these other things, like almost like they're dinging the players. We had Whit Merrifield on yesterday. He's on the rules committee. He said, I have not been told about any of those rules they're testing. I'm like, well, then no one
He
knows.
has 50 bags a year. He doesn't need help.
He doesn't want help.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
we didn't even know about it.
Up. Isn't it like 85% now? And there's like infinitely more stolen bases?
Yeah, I think it's working. I think we got more running. And I like more stolen bases, but I don't think we need to push it anymore. I think this is working.
Well,
like, the one guy gets on base, and like I'm like, he's probably not going to run, and then all of a sudden Byron Buxton pinch runs for him, and now I'm like, great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you're MLB, it's like quit while you're ahead. You know, you did good. You did good on the pitch clock. People like it. I was at a Red Sox game this weekend. It was less than 2 hours. That doesn't happen. But yeah, quit while you're ahead. Don't keep trying to change things. And you've done good. Let's stick with it for a while.
Let it be. I'm surprised they even tried to make the mound 62 feet.
They did try that. They tried to mess with that in the Atlantic League. That got vetoed. So at least there's one thing that got dinged.
I'd still be in the game if the pitchers had to throw from further. Hitting would be easier. Come on, I'm for that one.
Hey, Matt, we appreciate it, man. And we can get into it more. Now, next time we have you on, we get to see what it looks like in the Atlantic League. We get to watch the circus, and then we can report back on it.
That's true.
Appreciate you, man. Safe travels, all right? Stay warm in Cleveland. We'll talk to you in a few weeks.
Barnesy, you're the man.
Thank you. Matt Barnes, Marlins reliever, joining us. You know what's funny to me, Kratzy, and we're going to bring in Ken in like 20 seconds. I feel like I'm breaking news for a lot of the players about the rules that they're trying out. Nobody knows about it.
Nobody does, and that's part of what's crazy is there. And Matt kind of touched on what the implementation is. Like, if they're creating this rule, we can veto it. We, as in the players, can veto it. They can veto it, and then it can be implemented. And I think it could be something where it's like the way we see it in the Atlantic League. No, it won't be implemented that way. But if they stretch it so far and then they're like, oh, look how much we're coming back from that. You can only bring one pinch designated, relay runner in from the U.S. Olympic team per game. We had it at 2, but now we're going to do it at 1. Like they're not dumb. They're just naive.
Ken Rosenthal, Senior Insider, from The Athletic, from Foul Territory, here in Weekly on Fair Territory. Too bad there's nothing to discuss with Ken today. What a damn day. We had Boras on earlier. Ken, great to talk to you. Of course, I want to start there. The big news, Max Scherzer just addressed how he feels like the sticky stuff is a mess and not being handled well. And what do you know? 2 days later, he's the guy that gets made an example of, essentially. What have you observed? What have you heard?
Well, what I wrote today basically was that as great as Max is, he is going to need to adjust to all this and adapt to all this. And when I say all this, I mean the sticky stuff rules and I mean the pitch clock, which he's been raising concerns about, and not unfairly. What happened yesterday, obviously we heard all the different versions, right? The umpires had one version, Max had another. But the one thing I'm not sure that Max totally grasps is that rosin isn't necessarily legal. And there was a memo sent out to all the clubs in spring training that said if rosin is misapplied or used excessively, then it can be considered a foreign substance. That is what the umpires determined yesterday. Now, the other part of it that is curious from his perspective is that the only rosin you're allowed to use is the rosin in the bag behind the mound. That's pre-approved by the umpires and a league official, and that's okay. Max said he was applying rosin with alcohol underneath after he had to clean himself off, and that too could be considered a violation because that rosin, in that sense, underneath the stands in the tunnel, is not approved. So I have sympathy for all players going through this kind of transition, and especially the older players like Max who have not experienced the pitch clock, and these are new rules with the sticky stuff, or at least rules being applied more aggressively. It's not easy. And there are certainly questions from yesterday. Phil Cuzzy, how come he is the only guy who's ever ejected or been part of a crew that ever ejected a pitcher for sticky stuff? But the crew chief, Dan Bellino, was pretty adamant, saying that Max came out the third time, stickier than the first time. So it seems to me this is an unfortunate incident. Can things be done better? Yes, things can always be done better. And I know Max said on the show the other day that he believes these checks should not be taking place publicly. They should be taking place off the field. I've got no problem with that. But at the same time, I just don't know what his case here is, because rosin in and of itself is not legal necessarily. It can be, under certain circumstances, illegal. And I want to say this as well. Some people interpreted what I wrote today as tough on Max and unfair to him. He's such a great pitcher. He is such a great pitcher. I want to see that great pitcher again, and I want to see him free of all this garbage that's going on and just doing his thing.
How is a substance that's given to the league, given by the league, not legal? Like you're saying, you were saying,
when it's combined with other substances, when it's used excessively, there are things that pitchers do, and you guys know this because you were part of that era recently of pitchers combining rosin with spider tack, pitchers combining rosin with alcohol. Pitchers do things, and these rules are in place for a reason. And I don't know about you guys, but I was sick of seeing the movement that we were seeing from pitchers because they were cheating. Now, I'm not saying Max was cheating, and he certainly, I don't think, was doing anything intentionally. But these rules are in place because of what went on. And the pitch clock is in place because of what went on. The guy's dawdling all the time. So, again, I have sympathy for the players because these things are difficult to adjust to, and you're used to doing it one way in any job. You're told to do it another way. It's not great. But these rules, in my opinion, the sticky stuff rules, they're in place for a very good reason.
This might be 4/20/23. This at 2:10. This might be the first time I disagree with Ken Rosenthal.
That's okay.
because the rosin is given to him, and Matt Barnes was just on talking about it, and he says, okay, well it's too much. Does he have to squeeze the rosin twice, or is it 3 times? Oh, now you might get a little too sticky. And like for me, if I'm a pitcher, I sweat like Jesus Montero at a drug test. Like I'm gonna sweat and mix it, and it's gonna become super sticky. Am I out of the game now, or do I have to worry? Holy crap! Like am I gonna get? There's guys that are like thinking, oh, I might get dinged because I really hit that rosin bag.
Erik, obviously, if that was happening and it was getting ridiculous and a circus-like atmosphere in the sport, there'd be a problem. It's only happened twice this year with Herman, who was deemed not to be too sticky. He was just tacky. But with Max, they felt, and Dan Bellino said this, and I am not going to sit here and presume anybody is a liar. Not Dan Bellino, not Max Scherzer, not Phil Cuzzi. Dan Bellino said that this was the stickiest he's ever seen it. So in their judgment, this went above and beyond. Now, Max is going to appeal his suspension when he gets it, I'm sure, and they'll have the case heard by a neutral arbiter, and we'll see what happens. But at the same time, it's not as if there is no case here, in my view, from the umpire's perspective. Not when that memo was released in spring training, and teams were warned. Guys, we're going to be stricter. We're going to do this more randomly. We're going to do it before and after you pitch, not just after. All of these things were out there, and yet we had a situation yesterday where the umpires determined a pitcher, obviously a very famous and great pitcher, was doing something that was not proper. We'll just have to see how it plays out from here.
How does it play out? When we asked Boras about this a little bit, of course, he said Max is appealing and strongly disagrees with the ruling and also how someone can measure stickiness with their hands and putting that on the umpires. But for the actual process, this is real. It's going to cost him money. The Mets rotation is missing a lot right now. Suddenly, Kodai Senga is looking around like, wait, where's Verlander, Scherzer, Quintana, Carrasco's hurt too. So for Max, do you think this is a guaranteed automatic 10-game suspension under any circumstance? Because Boras enlightened us that it's a league official who's doing the hearing. So he's like, they're not going to go against the league.
I don't believe it's automatic that it will be upheld. If Max presents a case that they find to be legitimate and valid, then it can get knocked down. We see suspensions get knocked down all the time. So that is possible. But I can't predict the future here. I can't predict where it's going. But at the same time, this is the process. This is the process that they follow, the process everyone knows about. And yes, it's really unfortunate for the Mets. And part of what I wrote today was Max has to be Max for the Mets to be good. And right now, for a variety of reasons, including physically, he has not been that guy just yet. So, again, Scott, I can't predict what's going to happen. My guess is it's upheld, but I don't know.
Yeah, when we were talking to Scott, Ken, what's up, man? When we were talking to Scott, he made it seem like he doesn't think it's going to get cut any. I think it's 10 games, and he didn't sound too confident. I mean, but I'm going to shift gears and talk about we've talked with our other guests about the A's moving to Las Vegas, possibly, hopefully, but also with the A's trying to move. I'm here in Nashville now. I'm hearing rumblings about some expansion going on. I need to know when a team's coming to Nashville because I'm going to try and manage that team whenever they get here. So, and I've talked to people here, and they're pretty confident that it's going to happen at some point. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Brock, expansion is going to happen, and what the commissioner has been waiting for and waiting for is the Tampa Bay and Oakland situations to be resolved. The Oakland situation certainly is headed to resolution. They're going to Vegas. Oakland, the mayor there last night said she's cutting off negotiations with the A's. They've had it. It's going to happen with Vegas. They've got land, the whole deal. At that point, that takes Vegas out of the expansion derby, right? And it leaves Nashville and Portland and Salt Lake City and Charlotte and all of these other cities we've talked about in the mix. Nashville, from what I can tell, and I'm not someone who has studied this all that closely, is a leading contender here. It's a growing city. It's a much different city than it was 10, 20 years ago even. And yes, you've got the Reds and the Braves and the Cardinals relatively close, but it seems to me that area could handle a team without compromising those other teams too greatly. I would expect that Nashville would be a very strong contender here. How Tampa Bay resolves, I'm not quite sure, but I do want to talk about Oakland. And yes, Vegas sounds very exciting, I'm sure, to fans who are not fans of the Oakland A's. It's going to be cool to see a team there. I get that. But for fans of the Oakland A's who have supported this team, it's a crushing day. And you might say, well, what are you talking about, Ken? They draw 5,000. Yeah, they draw 5,000. And you know why? Because the owner, John Fisher, has wrecked the club. And he has shown really disdain for competing in this sport while, in my view, setting up this whole Vegas plan and essentially wanting to fail in Oakland so Vegas would look that much more rational. It's rational. They're going to do well financially with this deal, but at some point you've got to run a baseball team again. And I was there 2 nights ago. I walked into that clubhouse, and Erik and Brock, I want to tell you something. I have never walked into a clubhouse, certainly not on April 18th or whatever it was, and seen a group of players, veteran players, so upset and disturbed by their situation because they know there's no hope. And that's not right. And that is what John Fisher has wreaked with the A's. And I know people will celebrate this, I understand, and there are all kinds of views on all sides, but for the people of Oakland, it's not good, and it wasn't right what happened.
Enlighten the fans, and you're basically saying, the A's were quiet quitting, as Scotty was saying. Enlighten them in some of the most blatant ways that they were quiet quitting, besides the roster construction or within the roster construction.
Lowest payroll in the league. Start there. But they also had Chapman, they had Olsen, and they had a group of players. Manaea was in that mix. There were others as well who were part of what they had. This was a couple of years ago. In 2020, they made the playoffs. They could have kept that team together and dealt with the rising salaries and maybe just let Chapman and Olsen walk at the end if they couldn't, or in their minds, afford them, but at least stay competitive. They also could have paid those guys and sign them to extensions like other teams do in these kinds of circumstances. So that's what I'm talking about. They tore apart the team in a way that was unlike anything they've done before. They have gone through cycles. We understand low revenue teams often go through cycles. But Billy Beane and David Forst, in running this club, always managed, or at least tried in most cases, to keep that team competitive. They were not into tanking here, not the front office. That's not something that they were comfortable with, and they never went in that direction. And at one point, they made the playoffs 6 times in 9 years. So you had a great front office, you had success, you had something going, and you tore it all apart. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, you hit it right on the head, and I'm sure there's other little things too. But ironically, today's 420. It's a very, it's just ironic that somebody's making their return tonight, and from a suspension. What are you hearing from what that's going to do to not only the Padres, but also how the Padres are accepting him back into the clubhouse? How are fans out there loving it? Because we don't hear the stuff from San Diego, and you're out on the West Coast right now.
Publicly, the players have said they will embrace Tatis, that he's one of their guys, he's their teammate, and what's done is done. He's served his penalty, and he's a great player. They want him on the team. If you polled all 26 players about him right now and promised them anonymity, would every guy say, I'm loving this? I doubt it. That's the nature of a clubhouse. Guys have different opinions, but the players realize how valuable he is to the team. And what's done is done. They just have to go forward now. He's signed forever, so it's not as if he's going away. What he'll do for the team will be quite interesting. I expect him to ignite them. I expect them also to be ignited when Musgrove returns this week or later this week. They kind of need a little spark. Good win yesterday with Soto hitting the home run, but it seems to me they could use a little something. Now, Tatis is not a savior or anything like that, but he is a dynamic player. We all know that. Certainly at AAA, he was going off, and I would expect that while there might be some adjusting, of course, he hasn't played in a long time at this level. It's been like a year and a half. He'll eventually be the player that he was. I assume that's going to be the case. Fans, I think fans are the most forgiving, And Padres fans are loving what the team has become, understandably so. And I don't know that too many of them will be upset to see him return. I think they're pretty excited about it, actually.
Do you think we're in a good place right now with the game, with PED testing? Because this stuff comes up when a player comes back. Our guys were pretty vocal earlier this week about maybe not having a player get to do his minor league rehab games. You know, there's always the debate from players about what the penalty should be. We got fan questions earlier this week, too, saying that should be included in contracts, you know, if a player gets suspended. But in my mind, that gets a little bit dicey as well and could almost become a court case. So where do you think we're at with PEDs in the game? 'Cause it's been such a topic for decades now.
It's never going to be perfect, Scott. And they're never going to be eliminated completely. And it used to drive me crazy when former Commissioner Bud Selig would say, we're going to get these things out of here, and that's going to be that. No, it's not like that. You can come up with all the tests in the world, and players who want to cheat will find other ways. They'll find ways to get around it. I'm sure that's happening, and I'm sure there are players who will fail drug tests going forward, as they often do, or as they sometimes do, I should say. And I once had a professor at Penn State who's an expert on performance-enhancing drugs tell me you've got to be an idiot to fail a drug test to test positive because of all the knowledge that's out there. I would agree with that. Players who fail, unless it's a real accident, it's not too smart. But for the most part, I would think the game is in a better place. Do I expect some players still use? Yes, I do. But it's not the issue it was, 20 years ago, that's for sure. It doesn't seem to be. And I say this cautiously, but I will repeat it. The sport is in a better place. And I say it cautiously because I don't really know what's going on. You never know what's going on with players and what they're doing. And sometimes Erik and Brock can speak to this, even guys in your own clubhouse. You may find out later they were doing something and you had no idea. That's how difficult it is.
That's fair. And one more for you before you jump. So, way to bury some news on a day full of it. The Diamondbacks designate Madison Bumgarner for assignment. It's a big part of a generation of baseball in terms of World Series championships, clutchness, just a bulldog on the mound, guy who will bark at hitters, entertaining to watch for years. So what do you think about this move? And people are asking, where's he going? And is he going to continue to pitch? I mean, he's owed $37 million still on this contract that they're going to have to pay out.
Well, he's got to pitch to get the money, so I expect he's going to not retire, and he's going to try to continue his career. Texas would be the obvious choice, right? Bochy is there. But the problem is that Madison Bumgarner is not the guy we all remember and loved from the mid-2010s, right? He's just not the same pitcher. The performance for the Diamondbacks has not been there. This is not an easy decision for them to make. No one wants to eat $37 million. No team, especially one that is not all that successful financially to begin with. So it's a tough day. It's a sad day in many ways. But the game is so cruel in this sense that it's unforgiving. And guys reach a point in their careers, Erik, I'm sure, would agree, and Brock would agree, that it's not there anymore. And it's not the same physically. And you can't do what you once did. And it's frustrating. And when you've got a guy like Bumgarner who did it at such a high level, it's tough for him to accept. It's tough for fans to accept. It's just tough, period. Unfortunately, that's the reality. It's the reality of life. It's the reality of baseball, that it just doesn't go on forever. And we'll see. Maybe Bumgarner in a new setting can figure some things out, but it's been a while now where he really hasn't been what we once remember.
Yep. Ken, great day to have you on. Enjoy the West Coast. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds great. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks,
Thank
Ken.
you, Ken. And you can catch Ken every single week on his own show as well. It's called Fair Territory. I bet he'll have some things to break on Monday and break down on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. And also, as you can see, there's the website link on your screen at the moment. Fair Territory. I love the logo too. With Ken Rosenthal. What a week already it's been. We're only midway through the week. There's been a lot of drama. Okay, real quick, because then we have more guests flying at us, including Mr. Cy Young Corbin Burns. We got to see if he's feeling all right and can ask him about some of this news so far today. MGM locks, BetMGM locks. Let's look at yesterday first. We struggled again, and Adam Jones is an absolute beast. He is either 3 or 4-0 now. I think it's 3-0 because he keeps just riding Baltimore on money lines, and he picks the right day. So good for him. I look like I'm a little pissed off because pick Angels money line. Close game, but they lost. Walk-off, sac fly for Gleyber Torres. Judge was insane last night. 2 amazing catches and a 2-run homer. Judge won the game by himself. And Kratzy, you didn't hit your over on Braves pods, huh?
I mean, hit the over. Shoot. I had 2 guys with a career in those games, projected 5 ERA in those games. Like, that was an easy 9. They went 1-0 on a solo moonshot. Just like they said, I forget what movie it was. Oh no, we suck again.
It's an Adam Sandler movie for sure.
Yep, I'm back.
Yep. I feel you, dude. I'm struggling a little too. We also have this week, especially, we have our first official troll in the YouTube chat. This guy, Dinger or girl, has been all over me, which I'm all about it. I welcome all trolls. As you guys know, I am open to any conversation. So Dinger was like, yo, you're not posting your picks as much right now. I'm like, fair, because we've been putting some of it up on BetMGM. Good call. I'm going to ride it. I'm still 9-6, as we can show some money bags real quick. Up 245. Kratzy was hot to start. He is cold at the moment, 5-10. And also for everyone, like if you're following this, people get hot and cold. We're only doing 1 lock per day. Our rules have to be night games, so we start to limit ourselves. You can fade us. If you feel like we suck, fading is very easy. Usually we're picking a money line, pick the opposite side if you think we suck. And then Brock just getting started.
Just getting started. I need to get that first win out of the way here. I'm 0-1. I think tonight's going to be a good one, though.
Yeah, well, let's do it. Our BetMGM locks of the day. Win us some money, Brock. Who you got?
I got the Cubs under. I think it's 11.
It is.
I believe. Yep, 11. That's a lot of runs. Scoring 11 between the two. I think the Cubs win. They got the Dodgers, I believe.
Yes.
Is Mookie Betts back? He just had a baby, I think.
Yeah, he's on paternity leave. They said he might start playing some shortstop
Shortstop, which is real weird.
Agreed.
Real weird. If anyone could do it, he can do it. But stay in right field, dude. You're a Gold Glover, you know. Yeah. But I got the Cubs under 11, so hopefully they cover that, and I go into tomorrow 1-1.
It's Grove against Tyone. Tyone's, it's got a 4.5. It's only been a few starts, but pretty good starters. So I like that. I think tonight might be the night for Brockstar. Kratzy?
Yeah, I'm going the Mets and the Giants game. I'm going the under at 8.5. That's minus 115, and I put 230 out there to win myself a solid 200. I'm not even going to explain myself. Like, I have to stop explaining myself. If you guys saw how much research I do and how awful I've been so recently, like, I was 4-1 to start, and now I'm 5-10. I feel like I'm the Phillies. Like, I feel like I'm going to make the playoffs, but right now I'm looking more like the A's.
Yeah, you might need to move to Vegas, dude. And I'll go Mets money line. The ace of the New York Mets, because he's looking around and he's like, is anyone here? I thought I signed with a good ball club. Mets looked good yesterday, even after Scherzer got ejected from the game. Brandon Nimmo, I think, leads the National League in wins above replacement. He's playing a mean center field. He had 5 hits. I think the offense stays hot. I got Mets money line against the Giants, minus 120. Kodai Senga, I think, is great. He looks really good as long as he can keep the walks under control. The ghost fork is real. Giants offense, in my mind, is below average this year. Of course, watch, they'll go score 10 now. But I just think minus 120, that's close enough for me. It's not too steep. I don't like to touch the 135 plus kind of games on a money line. Then I start to look at a run line or I look elsewhere. But for me, I saw some value there. So I'll book that and we'll see how we do. And it's bet 10, get 100 instantly if you use the code SPICYMLB. You sign up and deposit at least $10 into your newly created account. Download the app on iOS or Android. Place a pregame moneyline wager of at least $10 on any MLB team to win at standard odds price, and then you will receive $100 in bonus bets instantly if you use the code SPICYMLB. If you sign up in Massachusetts or Ohio, you will receive $200 in bonus bets. Corbin Burns is going to join us quite soon. We got about a minute or two. I wanted to ask you guys real quick about not just Bumgarner being designated for assignment, but Brockstar, did you see him getting into it with Wilson Contreras yesterday?
I did see it. Yeah, I did see it. He's been known to do that from time to time. Get into it with a hitter. He's not afraid to say anything, and that's the kind of the old school mentality. There's been times when I've been team Bumgarner, but more recently I've been team whoever he's yelling at, because I feel like it happens too often. I think what did Contreras take? What did he do? He fouled a pitch off and thought he should have hit a homer or something, and something like that. I mean, come on, just get the ball and throw it again. I think it's gotten to the point where it happens too often. It happens too often. But I'm a big Bumgarner fan and what he's done in baseball, and I think there's just sometimes you just move on and get on with the game.
Is it fair to say if he was still a number one, people would be like, that's fucking awesome. This dude's at your throat. Did I nail it?
Yeah,
Right?
I think so.
Right on. And you can't take that. No matter what, Ken kind of hit on it a little bit. No matter what is happening, like with your body, if your velocity is going down, your stuff's not quite as good as it was, like your competitive drive inside, that's why your 60-year-old grandfather still wants to try to beat you in ping pong. Like that drive never leaves. That never diminishes. The body starts going down. So he still has that drive. He was a guy, the first time I ever played against him, I whacked a single off him. So I was like, yeah, this is big for me. And he comes up to me in the next day during BP, and he was out in the outfield. And he comes up to me and goes, hey, man. He goes, how big are you, man? How much you weigh? And I was like, what? I was like, this is the first time I ever met him. First time I ever met this guy. He goes, when you got in the box, you kind of look like a big guy. Like, so he's always just like, he's sizing everybody up. And when he thinks he's got somebody, like, or somebody's stepping out of the line of the box that he's putting them in, he's going to put them back in their place. And unfortunately, he hasn't been doing well. I would disagree with Ken. I think he can still get back at it. I think he can help somebody, not in the fashion of if you think you're getting Madison Bumgarner to throw 27 scoreless innings to beat the Royals in the World Series. No, he's not getting back to that point. But that was almost 9 years ago now. So, like, if you're going to look for somebody, I'm sure there's a number 5 on some team that needs some innings, and you get him out there and you make sure you mitigate his starts. I think, especially because the team's going to pay him at the minimum, because he can go home for $37 million.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I will say this. I mean, he's 33, but he gave his arm, for glory at times. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. Let's get to our next guest, Milwaukee Brewers pitcher Corbin Burnes, back at it with us. Corbin, great to see you. And actually on this topic, I want to drive right into it with you for a second. Madison Bumgarner designated for assignment. He's had a great run in this league and probably will continue it, like Kratzy said. We were talking about him getting after it with Contreras yesterday, and Garrett Wilson in the chat was asking who in the league is the biggest trash talker among pitchers. So what did you think about Mad Bum getting into it? And we were saying, like, that's just him. And do you observe that from other players?
Yeah, he's done it ever since he's got to the big leagues. You see it every year. He's jawing at guys and doing it. And like you said, I think it's part of the intimidation factor, and guys know that, hey, if you do something he doesn't like it, he's gonna let you know. I remember, it was 2018. We faced him at home, and he was John at, I think, Scope or Bronny or something, and Scope came up and hit a grand slam, and I think we hit a walk-off grand slam like the 6th inning that day. We were all mobbing the field, screaming at him. Just kind of one of those things that he brings energy, but it'll energize the other team too if you let it.
Yeah, I played with him the next year. I remember that because he told Braun to get back in the box, and Braun was like,
"That's right."
He was like, "What? Don't talk to me." And I talked to Bumgarner the next year, and he goes, you know what? I really didn't want to throw at Bronny, but he said he kind of challenged me in the box, so I had to throw at him. And he goes, damn, Scope hit the ball really far the next time up. He goes, I guess that's what I get.
Yeah.
But Bernsey, have you ever had a situation like that? Have you ever gotten into somebody's face? And I'm not just saying Contreras because he was on the Cubs. Now he's on the Cardinals. But is there a guy on another team that you're like, yeah, I definitely yelled at him? Or have you yelled at a teammate yet? Are you that status yet? Are you a yell at the teammate guy yet?
No, not there. Maybe when I get to your age, maybe I can do that. Maybe
Okay, fair.
Need some more.
There you go.
Need some more time before I can do that. No, I'm not one of those guys who likes to get in, get in other guys' grill and jaw at them. Obviously, there's some things that'll make you upset or piss you off a little bit out there, but I think I've got good enough stuff that I can just go ahead and get you out when I need to, and not have to give the other team that a little extra energy or a little bit of excitement to get them going.
Yeah.
Corbin, how you feeling? How's the pec? Do you feel like it's recovering well and you'll make your next start?
Yeah, everything's good. Played catch yesterday and everything felt good. We got an off day today, so just hanging out, and then bullpen tomorrow will be kind of the final test to make sure we don't feel anything. But playing catch yesterday, throwing a little fly ground, everything felt good.
Bernsey, what's up, man? Did you get a haircut?
No, it's just pulled.
You
up
just got
right now.
you just got it pulled up. You got
in
it
the
pulled up
bun.
nice and tight. You can't even see it back there. Yeah, I wanted to ask you. Obviously we've been talking a lot about Max Scherzer today and the sticky stuff. Me personally, I want to know what sticky stuff you use to make your cutter do that. You talked about I don't really say much to guys just because I know I can get them out. Well, that's true. You just throw that backdoor cutter and nobody can hit it. So let's talk. Let's dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not a sticky stuff guy. You watch. I lick the finger. That gives me enough. Enough. Some guys use the sweat and rosin. For me, I can't get a consistent enough feel on it because every rosin bag's different, and when it's cold, you're not getting enough sweat, or when it's really hot, you're sweating too much. So, for me, what I found the most consistent thing to do is to lick my finger, and I get enough, and that's how I can get the most consistent and get the best feel in the baseball. And I think what happened with Max yesterday was unfortunate, but obviously I don't know any of the details. Just having seen a little bit on TV and a little bit of conversations, but I'm sure we'll hear some more about that in the next couple of days.
Have you ever been close, since you don't use anything, when they test you, or have umpires kind of just been like, oh, it's Burns, okay, whatever? Like, have you ever been close? Because today, this whole situation, this whole week with Herman, which made us, when Max was on Monday, we talked about it with him. I had never seen the fact that, oh, hey, go in, clean it off, and then we'll come and inspect it again. Like, I never knew that. Have you ever been close?
No, I've never gotten that. I think we've seen. Can't think of. We were playing someone last year where they were asked to go in and wash their hands and clean off their hand or whatever it was, because they felt like it was getting too much of a buildup with rosin or something. But that's the only time I'd really seen that. And then, like you say, we see it on social media all the time when, like the Herman thing the other day where he was asked to go wash it off, and then obviously the Scherzer thing yesterday. But yeah, I haven't seen that. I haven't been asked to do it. So I don't know if those guys are getting just sticky and they're being asked to remove it because they know it's sunscreen and rosin, and it's just getting too tacky. But I'm not sure. That's something that I'll definitely talk to some other guys on the team just to see if they've had that issue before. But never been asked to go wash off my hands or anything.
I think some pitchers are concerned about it. We had Matt Barnes on earlier where he's like, yeah, I use rosin. It's like, am I going to get in trouble now? He's like, I don't know what the level is. He's saying, how much sweat can come off of my head? Everyone sweats differently. I'm in Miami. It's humid. So my big picture question is, and I know it's not affecting you because you're not using rosin and sweat, but how are they actually able to tell a stickiness level? You're relying on an umpire who probably didn't learn that in ump school. Like, are they putting different levels of stickiness on people's hands, on dummies' hands, and going, see, that's too much? It sounds like they're trying to mess with science, but not actually using any testing equipment.
Yeah, I mean, if you talk to every umpire, every umpiring crew, they all say, "Oh, you know, we've dealt with it. We've tested what sweat and rosin and what everything feels like, and what different tackiness and what illegal substances feel like, that kind of stuff." But I mean, unless you're in the in-game action and you're sweating, like Max is a guy you can see he sweats his ass off. So it's like, is anyone that's testing it going to have that level of sweat and the rosin to test the tackiness? So I don't know what their levels are of what's sticky, what's too sticky, what warrants hey, go clean your hands off and start over kind of thing. I don't know what that is. It's obviously it's very subjective to each umpiring crew and each umpire. Obviously, Phil Cuzzy and his crew, that's the third one they've done, and all three have happened to come from his crew. So I don't know if they have different levels that they're testing and have different expertise with it. I really don't know, but I think there's something definitely going on that needs to be figured out of what that levelness is, how you can actually test to see if something's too sticky, and just also knowing where like you say, the environment you're in. If you're in Miami versus if you're in Colorado Springs, where there's not going to be much humidity, it's obviously going to be a lot different.
I want to switch the sticky stuff to talk about glue. Who's the glue of the Brewers? And I'm not talking about who's putting the glue out for the Brewers when they go out to a team dinner. It's a play on words here. Who's the glue for the Brewers right now? Who is, like, what are you guys? Because when you're winning, sometimes you're like, I'm not exactly sure how we're going to win, but this. Who is that for you guys right now?
Yeah, I would say on the position player side of it, Willie Adames is great. I think we don't have any better guy as far as bringing energy to the field every day. Can connect with everyone on any level. He comes into the clubhouse like it's opening day every day. He's excited to go. He's excited to play. The guy doesn't take a day off. He's in there every day. So it's someone that I think everyone can look to as far as like, hey, this guy's ready to go. We're ready to go. And then a huge difference this year for our pitching staff has been Wade Miley. Wade's been around the game for 14, 15 years. He brings some level of expertise that none of us can bring, and he's energized. He's on a young team with a bunch of young guys that have him feeling better than he ever has, and he's excited to be around us, and he keeps our pitching staff really light and fun. So I think those two guys right now are probably the leading two guys as far as keeping that clubhouse energized, getting everyone going every day. Wade's brought a bunch of fun stuff to the clubhouse, for post game and in game, just all kinds of stuff to keep everyone energized.
All right, you need to answer this question quickly because I ask guys and it really stumps them. So I set you up. Okay, on your team right now, you have to cut one guy. He can't be playing baseball anymore. You got to trade one guy, and then you have to room with one guy. Go. You got a timer. I'm gonna put you on the pitch clock. Go.
I'm cutting Rowdy because he takes up way too much of the couch. Like, he's constantly on the couch. You can't get him up off the couch. Trade. I mean, really, the answer is going to be Rowdy to everything. We'll trade Rowdy. I mean, we love Rowdy, but yeah, he does like to spend his time on the couch.
Who are you going to room with, though? The last one is room with. Who are you going to room with?
That's a good one. I'll room with I'd say Rowdy, but that's too much of a mess. I'll go with Wade. Wade's a good time. He's fun.
Wade, I got a question about Wade. Is he still getting jalapeno poppers and taking the jalapeno out of the actual popper and just eating the fried cheese? Because he used to do that he used to do that in Boston. Love Wade.
I haven't seen that yet, but I'm gonna ask him about that one for sure.
He said he doesn't eat anything that's green, so he's got to do something if he's still pitching, man. But like, we used to give him a hard time for that.
That's the thing with Wade now. Wade's like, I've worked out this year more than I have in my entire career. So now he's like, man, my legs kind of hurt. Like, you guys maybe work out, and I got muscles now, and so now shit hurts, and stuff's never hurt before. So he blames a lot of his success and his soreness is on the training staff and the strength staff for actually making him work out. And hey, I mean, I'd say it's paid off so far.
Hey, what do you think about the Cheesehead celebration? And Freddie Peralta's response, while loving it, was, "What do pitchers get?" And we talked him into it too. And the idea was if someone has an absolute day, not in between, of course, and we made sure he knew that. He was like, no, I want to stay in the zone. We're like, duh. 6, 7 innings, whatever you did, 8 innings, you shut him down. Can the pitcher get the cheesehead? Because, hey, if you hit a homer in a 13-1 game, you get rewarded. So can pitchers get involved? I don't think I've seen it go down yet. Freddie said he was going to implement it at the right time. Your thoughts?
We haven't seen it yet, but look, if Freddie's going to go out and shove and do his thing and he wants the cheesehead, we can put the cheesehead on it for sure. But I think the cheesehead's great. It's something that I think the fans can get behind because obviously Wisconsin cheese, whatever, and it's something that they've seen forever and around the Packers and so now just to bring it, I think, to baseball and have it'll be a little fun deal. I'm sure the team store is going to be selling cheeseheads, in by the hundreds now. If we keep rolling and keep hitting homers, I'm sure we're going to see a lot more cheeseheads around the stadium for sure.
I have a fan question for you from Garrett. He said, for any young pitchers in high school or college, from a metrics point of view, what do you feel are the most important metrics?
Let's see, that's a good question. I think for I think any young guy, coming up or just getting into pitching, getting into that side of the the analytics and the metrics part of it is just first of all, understanding them, knowing that hey, some of these guys have really good fastballs, have 19 to 20, 20 inches of rise on them. Those are the good, classified as good four-seam fastballs, and knowing like, hey, is that something you're actually going to be able to do? That's something that I chased for a long time, and in 18 and 19 was being a good four-seam guy and trying to be a good four-seam guy with a good slider off it, and I was chasing numbers and found out later on that I was never going to be able to get to that, and that's where this cutter kind of came into play. So I think for the most part is understanding what those numbers really mean, and then understanding, hey, is that something that's really feasible for you to do? For me, trying to chase that high four-seam vert was not something I could do. Instead, I could turn into a cutter and mixing some other pitches around it. So I think for the most part, it's understanding what those numbers mean. Can you really feasibly do that? And if not, then finding, what kind of what fits your game the best.
What's the you said today's the off day. What do you got? What do you got going on today? Like, what's the big fella doing? Is Carter involved? What's going on?
Yeah, so Brooks up watching Carter right now. He was just screaming his head off a little bit ago. We just put together a little a jungle gym for him, which he played on for all of about 30 seconds and then was over it. So that was fun. So yeah, we're going to head to Whole Foods here in a little bit. We just had a 10-day road trip, so we don't have too many groceries at home right now. So need a grocery run, and then we'll get some dinner tonight. So it's full dad mode today.
Love it. Corbin, I got to do one hard-hitting one for you.
Yep.
So today, Fernando Tatis Jr. returns. Wanted to get your thoughts and how other players feel about PEDs and testing and everything in the game. Everyone experiences it, of course, because everyone gets tested. So what do you think about his situation and where we are as a sport on that front?
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate. Obviously, a great young player like him to obviously get popped and go through that. Coming on the heels of him signing this huge extension and the excitement around the game, around the Padres, around him at the time. I think it was unfortunate for obviously that fan base to miss out on 80 games of him playing, then also the game of baseball missing out on that. So I think it's tough. It's obviously it's the consequence for taking a performance enhancing drug like that. It's not something that's new. It's been around the game for a long time, and whether guys have just shied away from it or gotten better at hiding it, whatever it may be, it's obviously not as prevalent, but it's still there. So I think it's just unfortunate. Obviously he's back today, so I think it's going to be obviously an exciting day in San Diego and for baseball to get an exciting young player back. But I think the game of baseball really took a hit with him missing the time like he did.
Who should be the face of baseball? Who should be the guy that you would tune in to watch on Foul Territory?
I think right now it'd be tough to argue against Shohei and what he's done for the last couple of years and what he can do on both sides of the ball.
I know a little bit of Japanese. I know how to say I farted in Japanese. And I know how to say, did you fart?
Yeah, I'm not sure how long that conversation would go then.
It's okay. I mean, onara data, and then you say onara shita. So there you go.
Perfect.
Yeah, so when we have Shohei on, we know what Kratz is asking him. Good luck.
Yeah.
Hey, a good way to finish there. Corbin, thanks for the time, dude. Great to have you as always. Enjoy the off day.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, of course.
Say Burnsy.
Corbin Burns with us on Foul Territory. I like it. Wow. Whew. Feel like I haven't been able to take a breath. Like, this has been an absolute ride so far today, going over everything. I just wanted to make sure before we jump into slap hands that you guys were able to get whatever opinions you wanted out there. We went through Mad Bum. We went a little bit with Ken through the Oakland A's situation. For me, it's a bummer. I mean, I actually do think there are a lot of A's fans. I think that's a big market too. So
Agreed.
I was pretty pissed because you're seeing it play out. You knew it was going to happen, but then when it actually does hit, and it's real now. I mean, it's a binding agreement. It's happening. They've been fighting with the city forever. So it just sucks for Oakland fans and for Oakland to lose another team. So just wanted to say I feel
I agree. I mean, obviously, I hated going to Oakland. Didn't like the stadium, obviously clubhouse, whatever. But whenever they're good and they have fans, their fans are great. Like when Stephen Vogt was there and they were chanting, "I believe in Stephen Vogt. I believe in Stephen Vogt." Like I was in right field and I was like chanting it with them, because it was awesome. And they would look up stuff about you and talk about, yell stuff at you. Like they're good fans. And yeah, when the Oakland A's are good, it's fun to play there. So it sucks for them, sucks for the fans, but I mean that stadium is bad. So
it's bad on purpose. They didn't do anything to it. They
exactly.
purposely made it worse. They never even fixed anything. That's wrong.
Yeah.
And I think we're getting too caught up on the stadium part of it. As players, we have a voice. We have a voice of, okay, the stadium sucks. Rendon shouldn't be able to be touched by a fan or be able to touch a fan. There, you're walking out into no fans out there. But you're right, Scott. Like there is a ton of fans out in Oakland because, like the other Scott, Scott Boras said. Well, yeah, that's a huge market. There's you got to get the TV deals right out there. My question to Ken would be, is it possible? Can Oakland say, okay, you know what? They're going to Vegas. Can we bring a team back in here? Because there's Oakland A's fans. There are people that grew up in the Bay Area that were either A, Will Clark fan, or B, a Ricky Henderson fan. And there was people, like there is huge fans out there for the A's. Can they be back? Can they be back and say, "Hey, we'll take an expansion team here in Oakland," and all of a sudden, whoop! Now we get a new stadium.
No chance.
I'm
just saying.
Are they allowed? Yeah. Are they allowed?
They are definitely allowed. I'm just saying the league won't do it. And my thing, if you're an A's fan, is I think sometimes when a team has moved in the past, the fans still stick with the team. The ownership dislikes you as a fan if you're in Oakland. They have displayed that, especially the last few years. So I would be curious, maybe at some point we'll bring on an A's fan or two, some of the diehards, and be like, are you still going to root for this team when they go to Vegas? Or are you going to pick up another team? Of course, there's a team nearby, but they probably don't like them. So I would think that's hard. If it was me, given this particular situation, I'd be like, I'm out.
And I'm sure there are some A's fans who are out because of the way they've run the team, right? They get rid of their favorite players all the time. Matt Olson, Matt Chapman, Sean Murphy just recently. I mean, they trade everybody. They get rid of their best players. And that's part of the reason why they're in the situation that they're in. I mean, you have to have guys like that fans want to come to the ballpark and see, and they don't have those guys.
Mm-hmm.
But like what you said, Scott, it doesn't hit on what I'm arguing about. They hate the ownership. Agreed. They hate the fact that the stadium stinks. Agreed. But what if a new governor gets, or senator, whoever's the one that keeps kiboshing this thing at the ground level, building a new stadium, build a new stadium in an area where fans have easy access, new ownership. Those fans are still going to come out because baseball is, and I guess football is kind of this way, but you're prideful of your city. Like, you have pride, like you grow up in Philadelphia or around Philadelphia. You want to make sure everybody knows, yes, I'm from Pennsylvania, but not Pittsburgh. I'm close to Philly. Like, I'm a Philly fan. And you don't associate with the Philadelphia Orchestra. You don't associate with the Philadelphia Riverfront. No, you associate with the sports teams. And so people in Oakland want to associate with their Oakland sports teams, and they just keep getting shipped out of town.
Perfectly stated. Unfortunately, it just seems like a hypothetical because no chance for a long time. I mean, you have a team moving. They're going to pop 2 more teams up. There's a 0% chance that those teams will be in Oakland. But to answer your question, no, they're not banned from having a team. They're just going to be looked at like Montreal. There's fans in Montreal still that always call for it. There's this group that reminisces and that wants to bring it back. It's just not likely because the league's going to say, well, you couldn't handle a team. And sure, there was ownership intervention on that, but that's just the card that they've been dealt. So I feel for them. Let's do slap hands. Let's go. All right, 2 promos. One, because we had Corbin Burns on, and I forgot this, but I'm not too late. Brew Crew Territory. We're doing some regional shows. This is the kickoff. Episode number 2 is out there now with our guy, Freddie Peralta. But episode 1 had prospect reports from Baseball America. We had Yelich on. We had Woodruff on. Every week, the latest and greatest on the Brew Crew through the highs and the lows and their top players. I think Rowdy's coming on again soon. Next episode, of course, will include some Corbin Burns in there. Every Tuesday, available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, the whole deal. Check it out. It's
Wade
free
Miley was
$99.
on that episode too. With
That's right.
That funny Peralta picture.
Mm-hmm.
Brock, you missed it. Freddie hit breakfast in the hotel lobby, and then he also was hitting lunch. And Wade, I'm not sure what he was coming for. Like, rednecks, they eat whenever they want to eat.
Mm-hmm.
So, he was probably packing some food for his family, but he showed up in that episode too.
I'm a huge Brew Crew fan, man. I wish it would have worked out with me and the Brew Crew. We had COVID season. I got shipped out of there real quick, but I love everything about the Brew Crew, man.
Yeah, it's a great fan base.
You would have been a guy out there just because, 1, the way you play, 2, you wear your uniform really weird, so they associate with that kind of stuff.
Yep.
One more promo from me, just because I like the artwork. Fernando Tatis Jr. I'm back. Dugout Report does great art on IG, so here he comes. I like it.
Yeah, but Jordan came back in 45. He didn't come back in 23.
True. Good call. All right, I'll tell our guy that to fix it, but it's going to be crazy. And also for the Padres, I mean, Tatis coming back, Joe Musgrove's coming back. Things are looking good for the fan base there, even though, in California, it's like bad times for Oakland, great times for San Diego. Wow, we did it. And did we do it on time? We're going to get off at 3?
How about that?
Impressive. Brockstar, thanks for joining us, man. Congrats again on the marathon, dude. Get some rest.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we'll rest. We'll rest.
Yeah,
get some more Normatec sleeves.
I got some right here. I'm about to jump in them.
You're so big time.
Hey, if you're a podcast listener, we'll release separate pods on some of these interviews. Burns, Barnes, Boras, Rosenthal. What a damn day on FT Live.